But this is also, I was checking the mail before the show because I didn't want to waste your time. And this is pissing me off so much that I got to get it out of my system before we start the show. So this is an email, Minous, M-I-N-O-U-S, which is French for kitten. Let's talk about Gav. I heard you mention an interview that was doing well, but I couldn't remember who did it. It was Danny Jones. We're putting it on the site.
I'll see if it's live right now.
While searching YouTube, I came upon this. I don't think you've covered it. And it's the Moynihan Report. And the thumbnail's very interesting. So it's the ugliest picture ever taken of me. I was on the sesh with Tommy Robinson's Yabo lad friends in London. We hadn't been to sleep for 3 days. Just endless drinking, boozing, nose beers, everything. Tommy wasn't doing any of that. Of course, these were his friends. Tommy was going to jail the next day. So he was a little preoccupied. But that's an interesting photo that my enemies like to use. I think it's funny, but I'm very bloated, right? He gave up everything. So it's interesting, by the way, that as we learned from Eddie Wang, there was a lot more going on at that place than I realized. But it's not possible that, so their focus is not on the alleged serial that they were both well aware of. I wasn't, they were. That's not their focus, because, I could get sued for saying that. I'm just going to focus on, was Gavin a racist? And I wasn't ousted. I gave up everything, according to them. Okay. This is the guy who wanted to have me on the show, then chickened out and said he needed dental work. So these two guys, Thomas Morton, I gave him a life. I met him. I saw that he was a dud, but in a much worse way. Like a total nebbish dud. He wasn't in a band called Lord Jeff. He wouldn't be capable of being in a band. A high IQ loser. And I thought, okay, let's harness this. We'll go down the Louis Theroux route, but exaggerated. So we'll have you, first thing I had him do was live with some Dominicans in Bushwick for 3 days. Okay? So that juxtaposition became very alarming. And I knew he was a smart guy, so he'd be able to articulate how different they are than us. I called it immersionism. That became his entire fucking career. And what does he do when he gets out? He goes, well, Gavin was really important to me, but now he's a fascist. I have to come to terms, I meaning him, I have to come to terms with this evolution and what it means when the man that gave you a career, although he doesn't really ever thank me or acknowledge that per se, but the man who basically gave me a career turned into Hitler. What does that do for me?
Hi, this is Anthony Cumia.
And hello, I am Gavin McInnes.
Together, we're Compound Censored.
And we'd like you to subscribe to our network that has more fantastic content you could shake a stick at. Use this promo code for a one-time super offer.
Do it. It's uncensored and oh so entertaining.
Now, this is a guy, you want to talk about giving everything up? This is a guy who has ruined women's best years, I believe, 3 times.
He's not gay?
He's... What?
He's not gay, Thomas Morton?
No. Well, maybe.
Oh, wow.
But like when I first met him, when I gave him a life, he had a beautiful girlfriend, wife, newlywed, huge tits, perfect, fantastic tits, but also a nerd. Perfect little nerd team. Nah, I'm bored of her, dumped. Gets another one. Okay, so, a lot of marriages don't work out. Nah, I'm bored of her, dumped. Third time, nah, I'm bored of her, dumped. 3 marriages down the tubes, women's best years. They might be able to recover and have kids, but they're in their 30s now. It's not looking good. So I've always said that's mass murder, right? Because that woman's not going to have kids. They won't have kids. They won't have kids. There used to be stigma around that, ruining the best years of a woman's life. Now it's just like, didn't work out. Who fucking cares? She could freeze her eggs or all that shit, right? So I gave everything up. That's his lifestyle. He dared to call me a loser. I don't know why, but I guess I didn't make enough money at a Vice. Okay, my money's sitting rotting in the bank. But yeah, I guess I could have had a jet. So that's Thomas Morton. And his new job seems to be discussing me. Let me go do documentaries about Gavin. And so these two guys who worked at Vice, my thing, I created, right? They worked in my shadow. And they're sitting there discussing me. Now, Michael Moynihan, just as bad, much worse. I was told by his co-workers over at Reason, the libertarian nerds, he dumped his wife for getting ugly. She wasn't a knockout to begin with, but, women get older and, she's lost her looks. I could probably do better. You're dumped. He has a daughter. So you want to talk about giving up everything? You subject your daughter to the world of single parenthood because, I don't know, laugh lines. How's that for giving everything up? But in our bizarre hierarchy of values here in this black monarchy, that's not a big deal. Allegedly being racist is much worse. And I've talked about Jennifer Chiba, who I believe killed Elliott Smith. She wasn't ostracized in our crew. I ostracized her, but no, everyone else was like, whatever, shit happens. She stabbed her boyfriend in the chest. So, this website's dedicated to this, by the way. This isn't a cockamamie theory I just made up. Patton Oswalt promotes OxyContin and various opioids, says they're really easy to get, promotes them on stage, says they're awesome. His wife ODs on opioids. Not a big deal. Who cares? There's no connection there. Okay. I have a whole list on my phone, actually, of horrific things people do, and most pop. Oh yeah, that's a different one. Anyway, the list goes on and on. I can't find it right now. Maybe if I look up Chiba. Is it Chiba? Oh yeah, Mitch Hedberg's wife, junkie girlfriend. She got him to do heroin after he had quit. His tolerance was lower. She died. I don't know where she is now, but she was once calling me out on Twitter, and I'm like, didn't you kill Mitch Hedberg? My in-laws had a friend that I was sure killed his wife. Yeah. Anyway. It's an infuriating juxtaposition. It's hypocritical, and my whole thing is loyalty. That's my biggest pet peeve, and it's just wildly disloyal to have worked at the company I created, and by the way, totally kiss my ass when we're together, and then sit down miles away from me, making sure you're safe, and I know I sound like a fucking rampant feminist, but you destroy these women's lives, including your daughter. And you're like, I think you said once. That's literally what's going on here. Totally ignoring my coworker and, as I learned from Eddie Wang, his serial problem with. No. Rape's okay. Rape is A-okay. So look at the beginning of this fucking video. That's really pissed me. I love this intellectual thing too. I've got it all figured out.
Knows Gavin in any way that hasn't heard him drop the Nbomb.
The Nbomb. What a gay fucking term.
I don't think there's anyone who knows Gavin in any way that hasn't heard him drop the Nbomb. Usually in public and quite
constantly.
loud.
He loves it. Yeah, no. And
Constantly.
But is that like, how much of that is like the transgressive Gavin who's like a fucking 17-year-old kid from Mississauga, Ontario or something?
Stop.
Constantly.
Mississauga, Ontario. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to get picky about geography, but has it occurred to you two fucking nerds that someone says a rude word that you're incredibly sensitive about? Like, do you think when I'm talking to a young barmaid and I'm like, so do you have a man in your life? Well, what kind of man do you want? Oh, how old are you? I might be able to find you a guy. What are you looking for? Blah, blah, blah. Are you interested in... No, that word's not going to come up in that conversation. Do you think at July 4th, when I'm sitting with Matty Odell and Stiggs and we're making hot dogs and their girlfriends are there, we're throwing N-bombs around? Obviously not. But when I'm talking to a couple of loser like you who are clearly obsessed with that word and are doing podcasts about it. Ironically, this is very, what's it called? Macro? Meta? It's going to come up because it makes you cry and it makes you cross your arms and have podcasts about it. So ironically, the reason I'd say this word around like you two is because it makes you cry and do podcasts. It doesn't come up with Sean, my coworker here, on a regular basis. No. And it's yelled in public places. It's yelled in public places around you because it makes you go, ooh. Similarly, if you were talking to a trans, you would throw the word around if they were incredibly sensitive about it. That's the Scottish way. If you have a wound, we stick our penknife in it and twist it after dipping said knife in a little container of salt. So I haven't watched this because what are we now, 17 seconds in?
Yeah, 17 seconds.
And I'm fucking furious and I've spent 10 minutes talking about it. And I can't do the show without at least acknowledging the hypocrisy of these shitty people who have destroyed 5 women's lives? Flushed 5 women's lives down the toilet. And they're like, he's always dropping the N-bomb. You know how many lives I ruined dropping the N-bomb? I guess I threw everything away. Go ahead.
Trying to push people's buttons. And I noticed that when I knew him a little bit, and you would go out with him and he would try.
By the way, I'm just remembering too, one of the few times I've spoken to him 5 times. One of the times he was talking about how Shane fired him for insisting they do actual journalism and fact check their points. You're out of here. That's boring. And then the second one was that book that Jill Abramson wrote, the executive editor of the New York Times. And we were going over it, and it was so jam-packed with lies and mistakes. And he was sort of the new golden boy at Vice, so he felt very sensitive about it. So he was listing all the mistakes. And then I was eviscerated in it, the same way they're eviscerating me here. And so I was listing all the mistakes. And my copy of the book is it weighs extra with all the ink I wrote in the margins. And I was like, we should get together and do a podcast and talk about this. No, that would anger Shane, the guy who fired me. You fucking... See, this is why it doesn't pay to be nice. Shane's an asshole. They won't go near him. I'm Mr. Open-Minded, let's talk about it. And what do? That's who they attack. Because I know I'm not going to sue them. You fucking losers. And I bet this is one of the most watched videos he put out. It's like the Opie thing, where the only time people pay attention to him is when he calls Anthony Cumia a racist. How pathetic.
A loud racist comment to get people to crane their necks towards him. Right. And I'm like, okay, so for years, people at Vice, people around Vice, people who, liked Vice would ask me the same question. This is before the Proud Boys. Is he serious? Is it an act?
Why don't you ask me, you and be specific?
Putting this on is kind of the quote-unquote hipster racism.
Well, what he'd tell you is that he hasn't basically thrown his life away and gotten in trouble with the legal authorities up until now in this country for an act. However, if you've been around him and you've seen how he tells jokes, how he riffs, how he'll continue jokes for months and years at a time with no discernible punchline, it's not an unreasonable thing to ask. Mm-hmm. And he kind of waffles between being serious.
Is this fucking who were those old intellectuals, Gore Vidal and William F. Buckley? They're sitting there reclined in their 60 Minutes Charlie Rose set. They're having this incredibly intellectual discussion. And the topic at hand is, first of all, it's the cliche hipster to Hitler thing. But the topic at hand is, how serious are his N-bombs? Gore Vidal and William F. Buckley, I guess they did discuss Nazism at one point, and William F. Buckley said, if you accuse me of that one more time, I'm going to knock your block off. I should have said that to these two. Maybe I will knock their fucking blocks off. But this is not an intellectual discussion. You are not German existentialists discussing This is not Kierkegaard and whoever else. Fucking Jung. Is he an existentialist?
Joking to whatever, to whichever end kind of allows him to keep going and keep him out of trouble. You asked how much of the racial slurs is provocative, and I'd say 70%.
Yeah.
Versus that was one of the things.
70%. He's 70% racist. Well, I'm glad we're down to numbers. Hi, I'm 70% kidding.
Yeah.
Hi, Hi, are you racist? Well, 30%. Or maybe there's some miscellaneous there. So I'm 70% kidding, 25% racist, and then 5%, maybe there's a new category, like semi-racist. Look at him looking up for help.
But it can be provocative and you can believe it too at the same time.
Well, there's that too.
Oh,
That's
yes,
the
of course,
thing.
of course,
It's
yes.
just
it's not a binary choice here, right?
well, it doesn't disprove your
That
and it's
weird way of talking too that Moynihan's doing, I've heard that in LA a lot, where we were obsessed for a while with this guy he invented Slimer from Ghostbusters. And see if you can find this interview. And he's discussing, it's actually a really interesting story, how they all of a sudden got a massive budget. So they were kind of all amateurs in that movie, the special effects guys, but they were drowned in money. So they were like, so he made like stayed up for 3 days, must have been. He made like 17 Slimers, all beautiful. The guy's very talented. And they okayed this one, and then he was talking about the groundbreaking way they made him move and shit. Very interesting story. My boy was obsessed with Slimer when he was a kid, so I ended up my son and I made about 50 Slimers. See, I didn't dump my wife when she put on weight after having my kids. I hung in there, and then Ozempic brought her weight back. All things come to those who wait, I guess. Get it? And but the irritating thing about the interview, he goes, so I was working with a guy who was a really, really good friend of mine, and we had been working together for a very long time. Like it was that talk. Everybody who talks to him.
Is it that?
I think it might be.
You want to tell them where to go?
Well, I'm not sure. Haven't been there for a while. It's Rubber Rules on YouTube.
Yeah, just type in
easy.
Rubber Rules, YouTube, subscribe, and you're going to see, although it's been a little dormant for a while.
They just contacted me. They want to.
Yeah.
Foam rubber is the hardest thing. You've got to be Michelangelo to kind of fake the translucency with this crazy Monet breakup.
Is that Steve Johnson?
And it still
Yeah.
doesn't quite work.
Yep.
But with HD now and then the
Yes,
higher
this is
resolution,
the type of talk.
somehow the artistry, the prosthetic
totally
industry had to
insincere.
keep up with it. And
You know what I
look,
think it
did.
is?
Yeah.
And now
You're probably autistic if you're so good at latex and shit you can make Slimer. I mean, he is a fucking masterpiece. So maybe it's autistic people, they cross their legs and they're trying to be relaxed. And they're like, I was there, it was a really good time. It's a robot doing an imitation of a human. That's what the talk is. Thomas, on the other hand, has given up. He's like, no one's going to see me as human. I'll just be this nebbish, well, which is the gift I gave him. Except he looks like one of the rejects from Animal House that had to sit on the couch at the beginning, where there was with the packy guy and the fat guy, and they were trying to get into whatever it was, Beta House, Alpha House, and they kept getting directed back to the couch. Okay, now we got to look that up. Couch in Animal House beginning. Yeah, that's who Norton is. So they're at a mega house. They're trying to get into a mega house. That's who Norton is.
Membership chairman.
Let's find the couch. I don't think Moynihan would even have the balls to try to get into a mega house. At least Thomas is naive and arrogant enough to think there's a chance.
Hostesses Mandy Pepperidge and Bab Jansen.
Hi there, Kent.
Hi, Mandy
Hi there.
Pepperidge.
Welcome to Omega House.
Thank you. Nice to. Why don't we just go inside and meet some of the guys, huh?
They're about to meet baby balls for the first time.
A wimp and a blimp.
Whip and a blimp.
There are a lot of great guys, so don't feel you have to meet everyone. We just want you to enjoy yourselves while you're here.
Okay, fast forward a bit. Yeah, there we go.
Muhammad, Jagdish, Sydney, and Clayton. Now, just grab a seat, make yourselves at home. Don't be shy about helping yourselves to punch and cookies.
Yeah. So anyway, I can't watch that fucking thing. I can't bear the hypocrisy. Fucking scumbags.
So, if you enjoyed that clip,
then subscribe to Compound Censored using this promo code.